been talking about how unexpected menopause and perimenopause hits so many women. And we talked a lot about how it affects our personal lives. And so many women are working while female, right? What is it like? So Denise, you have you've had a really fabulous experience, and you've written a lot about this on LinkedIn and some really wonderful articles. Will you tell us about your experience?
Yeah, sure. So the experience, not quite fabulous.
Right. The articles were fabulous.
Thank you. So I think that my first experience in this whole perimenopause journey, where it really started to impact me in the workplace, was when I had what you would call an irregular period episode. I was at a client, big meeting, Fortune 500 company. We're in a big room, presentation, kind of went okay. Wasn't feeling that great. Go and I sit down, and I was surprised. So, not a great period experience, and was a little bit shocked and scared, but was able to make eye contact with somebody and, be able to figure out how to kind of mask it and get myself out of the room. It was a scary experience. Went to the hospital. Really they just said maybe perimenopause, maybe not, and I never heard the term perimenopause before. Didn't even know what that was.
Yeah.
End up at the OBGYN, and they tell me I may be too young for menopause, and just to keep an eye out for it. So, but where it really impacted me is that I continued to have these irregular period episodes at work. So I started to just wear all black all the time and kind of quietly, work through it. So that was the start of my experience.
That first one must have been scary. That sounds like really like what is going on?
Yeah, well, I think it started to have a real impact on my confidence.
Yeah.
I didn't feel comfortable anymore.
Yeah.
And then wearing all black, thought I was maybe making a fashion statement.
It doesn't feel like you. Like, you didn't feel like you were being yourself.
Like, wow, look at that.
Yeah. I definitely had my confidence shaken, and I started having so much brain fog that affected my confidence. And at one point I was giving a presentation to a corporate client supposed to be leading a workshop, and I was so afraid that I was going to forget stuff that I made notes that I referred to during the workshop, which of course then made them feel like I wasn't professional. So I got the negative feedback that I was afraid of getting anyway, but instead of she doesn't know what she's talking about, it was, she's using note cards. I mean, is she ready for prime time? And I was like, I don't know if I am ready for prime time, apparently. And that shook my confidence. Yeah. And then every room I walked into after that, I was like, oh, please, God, please don't let it be a brain fog day. Please, please, please. And that was happening before I even knew what brain fog was. So I just thought, I'm just losing it.
I didn't even really think about brain fog much until kind of we've been talking a little bit and realizing, my memory's like a sieve. Like everything, I either have to have it written down. It doesn't even matter if it's written down. Names, things that you know really well.
I always tell people, I'm really bad with names, but I'm great with lyrics from 80s pop songs. So those are locked in, but now I can't remember.
There's no room for anything else.
No more short-term memory. It's all gone.
But I'm curious, because I feel like I'm just learning about this. Like how y'all describe, like when you say brain fog, what does that look like?
I think it's really an apt description, because it feels like a fog has descended, and it, like, you can see dim shapes in your mind, and those are the words and ideas that you're trying to put together, but you can't, nothing has any clear definition. I literally will struggle for the most simple word. What is the word that means
that thing?
And my spouse will be like, door?
Yes, the door. Oh my God, the thing with the handle.
Yes, yeah,
that's right.
And it's like not just once. It's like you can be in a conversation where like almost every other word, I know who I'm talking about. What's that actor's name? What's the girl's name that works on the third floor? Yes, her.
I was always trying to read people's faces of like, I may have just told you this like 10 minutes ago, but I have no idea. So
Yes.
I'm just going to watch you and see if you think I look like an idiot.
Yeah. Now put yourself in a position, you're in an executive meeting, you're on display, and I mean, you're put in the position of nailing it. And you can't find your words. If someone asks you a question and you'll say, I'll have to get back to you, you start to have these like little, these little tricks to say, you know what, top
That's
of
a
my
great
mind,
question.
let me get back to you, I'll email it to you. But that becomes more common, and you're contributing less and less because you're just forgetting like certain basic facts, but important facts. That starts to not only hurt your confidence, but I think there's a little bit of a bias with others in the room,
Right.
and start to think maybe you're not on your A game, or
You're that dotty woman that we all are like, oh, she's so sweet.
Yeah,
like,
stereotypical,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And you start to feel threatened by all of that. I think it has that little impact on your reputation, whether or not it's said. It's definitely felt.
Yeah.
Definitely felt.
Well, and I think about that. We've been talking about, women receiving promotions, and so often you get to this place in your career where you're maybe due for a promotion right at the time this is happening to you. And now all of a sudden you're being, judged by your game, only it's not your A game anymore. And so, well, maybe that is a reason why it's so hard to make that jump from VP into the C-suite, or whatever it is, because opportunities are passing you by, not necessarily because of an overt prejudice, but because you don't know that. I mean, you can probably feel it. I always feel when I'm not bringing my A game, but I don't know how to bring my A game, and I don't know why it went away.
Well, first of all, I didn't even realize what menopause was or what perimenopause was. Nobody in my environment has ever pointed to menopause as a reason why they may have brain fog. Just, women are really good about protecting it and keeping it silent. And so I never anticipated that I would hit this point in life. And I didn't anticipate it in my 40s either. So menopause, for whatever reason, has this stereotype of being an older woman's issue. And you associate it more with Golden Girls, and like that was always what I had in my mind.
Which is clearly not us.
No,
because we're fabulous,
absolutely.
right?
Yes, exactly. So I had no idea. And I think that was the hard part, is understanding whether or not I was just different, and maybe, I may not handle it as well as others. And I looked at others like, how do I get my big girl pants on? And, just kind of carry on. Because I do think that some of my peers do, in my same age group, does a really great job, very professional. And I started to compare a little bit. And I think that was challenging for me, just that silence that surrounds it. And now maybe my age, I was a little younger when I started to go through perimenopause. It was in my early 40s, but then I learned from doctors, no, that's actually quite common to go through your 40s and experience this. So was very confused, but I think that the fact that we don't talk about it in the workplace and you're not prepared for it, it can blindside you. But for not just a 1 episode or 2 episodes, we're talking years.
Yeah.
Years.
Yes.
And I did a good 4 years of like completely floating and bouncing around to different types of doctors, and been tested for dementia, all that stuff that scared the hell out of me. Yeah. And I don't judge or blame the women before me that have kept it silent. And if you think about their back, they're fighting so many other issues.
Well, and the stakes are high.
Yes.
We were talking about how the fact that women take time off work to have children, it has been an excuse for decades for like explaining the wage gap. So the last thing we sort of need is a new biological issue like 20 years later that is going to impact us again. So I kind of get why, in addition to the silence and most women not even knowing what's happening to them, that once you do figure it out, you're like, you know what, let me just figure out how to deal with this and keep my head down and find my A game again and not make a big deal out of it. But it's super hard to do that.
It's super hard.
I think that what changes too as you're moving into menopause is that, your you're used to having a period. It happens every month. You sort of know how to prepare for it. But when it starts to become unpredictable,
Right. Yes.
that whole thing gets thrown out the window.
Yes.
And there's a t-shirt that I've seen in the last year or so that's anything you can do, I can do bleeding. And I was just like that struck me in this way of like, yeah, we're operating on top of like this stuff that's going on, that it's like there's pain and there's like, it's a real thing.
Right, yes.
And like, we just pretend like, oh, it's no big thing. I just need to borrow a tampon, you know what? And then I'm just going to keep doing everything.
For every year or so, there's like a new tell. So sometimes it was getting like flu-like symptoms. Now it's like either anxiety attack or a sleepless night or something like that. And so it doesn't matter when, if it's right.
My job that I just left, I was there for about 8.5 years, and it's a fairly young company, and it's grown up from a real mom and pop to getting pretty big. And what I saw was that I was really the only, by the time I left, I was the only female over probably age of 40. And so I really felt that like I didn't really have a peer group to be able to talk with about it. And I got to the point where I was participating at the executive level without the title or compensation. That's another video. But it was, there had never been women in the boardroom before. And even to the point where I still remember at the company, the first woman who came forward and said, like, do we have maternity leave? And it was the thing where like we looked around and were like, oh, we should probably have maternity leave. That seems like a good idea. And so like that's where the company was at. So the idea of coming in and saying like, we need to think about our employees who might be going through menopause, like that would just pretty much be me.
Right.
We need to talk about me. And I think just the fact that, if you're the only woman or you're one of very few women that are of this demographic and are getting to participate and have a seat at the table, it's hard to then be like, but you need to know that I'm going to not be able to perform.
Sometimes I need help with my words.
Yes.
You need to feel like you're in a place where there's trust.
Yeah.
And where you're not and you also need to know what's happening to you. I mean,
Yeah.
that's what happens to so many of us.
That's
right?
not, yeah,
It's
you
just
can't
like,
even start
why
the
am I
conversation.
deteriorating?
Right.
And I have no idea why.
Well, it's interesting though, because in an environment where there are a lot of younger people, I would say, and early to mid career, and a lot of women who are starting their families and everything. And yes, everybody is focused on maternity leave, and they're leaving our company because the maternity leave and benefits aren't good enough. But there are no benefits, for people who are older.
And I think it's also that it's because the symptoms are hard to pinpoint. And I know that in one of the earlier conversations, y'all talked about, when you start your period, it's very obvious that you've started your period. When you're pregnant, it's very obvious that you're pregnant. But this is such a kind of crapshoot of like, how does this all fit together?
10 years of hell.
Yeah, and like how would you even know how to go in and like what to ask for? That would be that would be the struggle too. And I've my situation is a little bit complicated, but I've had issues with chronic pain, fibromyalgia since my 20s, and so I'm already kind of dealing with amorphous pain and needing to manage that and needing flexibility, and just now figuring out how that's impacted by hormones and figuring out like what is chronic pain and what is menopause and those kinds of things. And so I already kind of felt like, some days I just feel crappy, so y'all deal with it. I mean, it's just, it's hard to know what to even ask for, except for I just need flexibility sometimes.
When you could say, oh, today's a crappy day because of fibromyalgia, then, okay. But if you said, today it's a crappy day because I'm perimenopausal.
Because I might
they're
be
like,
having
What even is that?
sorry,
yeah.
get back to work.
And oh, by the way, it's probably going to last about 10 more years.
Yeah,
So just FYI. But after that, I'm going to be super clear.
Yeah.
What boss is comfortable when you say it's a brain fog day?
Yeah.
Like how many brain fog days are you going to have, and how is that going to have an impact?
Like, I don't know.
So
We'll see.
And I mean, and I will be very honest here, is that my brain fog, my cognitive impairment, it did have an impact on my productivity. It had an impact on my performance.
Totally did me too.
And I own that. I totally own that. And I think getting transparent about it and saying, I care about my performance. I want to improve this. I want to meet my goals. I want to grow. And owning that, being very transparent about it, and then having a plan to get at it.
Because there are, like, I feel so much better now than I did when I didn't know what I had.
Exactly.
Because there's protocols, you know, I'm doing hormone replacement therapy.
Same.
I am obsessed about getting 8 hours of sleep.
Yeah.
I've changed my diet.
Right.
Like, there's stuff you can do to get your A game back. It's not like, hey, I'm going to have my B or C game for the next decade, so just be prepared. It's more like, you know, I need to go see my doctor a little more regularly. I need to keep up with my prescriptions, and I need to be really good about my lifestyle changes, and like, that's on me.
Right.
But to be able to be honest about it.
Yeah.
And I think that that's the piece that's missing, is that you're trying to operate on top of this stuff that you're struggling with, and
pretending like
and
you're
pretending
not.
like you're fine.
Yeah.
You know, like it's no big deal. And that to me is where the sort of bias, whether it's sexism or ageism, but that fear of bias keeps you from being able to be honest with your coworkers and your. And we're coming to do a job, and we need to do the job, but sometimes you just need a little bit of flexibility. I mean, the same kinds of flexibility that would accommodate menopause would also accommodate folks that are dealing with anxiety or have just had a death of a parent.
I thought about that earlier. People who struggle with chronic depression, and you know, like, sometimes you just need a little assistance. But it is so hard to be open about something like that. I mean, in my work as an actor, I have a girlfriend who's a decade older than me, and she went through menopause to perimenopause all by herself, like on film shoots, having hot flashes and pretending like she wasn't, because she was still shooting and auditioning in the 35 female range. And like, you know, right now it's still, there's so much sexism in the acting performance world. I mean, everywhere, but in my particular field, the last thing you want to be is an aging woman, because what you're saying is go with the younger, like, you know, you age yourself out of the business. So you desperately hang on to your youth as long as possible. And you sure as heck don't want anybody to know that you're going through menopause, particularly when men think that menopause, as we all do, happens to older ladies.
Well, part of it is that men know about menopause through the lens of the bedroom. Okay?
Yeah.
They don't understand
If they're old
it.
enough to have a partner who is going through it.
Right.
Yeah.
They don't
Right.
understand it through the lens of how it impacts the boardroom.
Yeah.
And that is significant. And if we look at, I looked at my own industry. I work in the PR firm, very female dominated. We're 70% female, 30% male across the board. But if we look at the statistics at the executive and leadership level, 70% men and 30% women. So imagine that shift, a female dominant. So you're talking about all these females that are being groomed, you would think, for leadership. Where do they go? And when do they leave? And interestingly, attrition starts to happen, you know, in middle management to early leadership roles. You know, the age group is around 40-ish. Where do they go? And it's just really interesting to see that has been the trend for as long as I've been in the industry, a couple decades. But I remember when I first entered the industry, and they're saying it's so female dominated. We're going to have a future where a lot of our agencies are going to be led by women. It's like, wow, I'm in the right field. They're totally supportive. And here we are. Nothing has changed. And how much of it do we point blame to, oh, is it the men who are pushing the women out? Or is it women who are pushing,
out.
Just losing their motivation.
opting out? Or, you know, there's a little bit of truth to the fact that women still perceive that there's only a little space for women, and you start to get competitive, and that queen bee syndrome kind of kicks in. And I don't think that women always help themselves. And
Or each other.
Or each other.
In the way they should.
Or each other. And right. And that's talked about a lot in women's leadership organizations, about how women need to better support women. You know, that's one of them. But they also talk a lot about supporting women's confidence. And it's like, okay, there is a confidence issue, but where does it come from? What is underneath it? What's triggering it? And start to deal with that. And when you talk about fighting equality, the one thing that will never be equal is our biology.
Right.
And we just have to own that. And yes, it's different, but there's a lot of power in it. So how do we harness the power of what we bring to business, you know, and really accommodate it where it needs to be, and kind of solve this issue around the kind of the biology aspect, because we sort of hide behind it. But we have to start addressing it.
Well, and I think the other thing that happens when women are still responsible for so much of the care that happens outside of their workspace, and lots of women, they're leaving because they have lost motivation, whatever, they're struggling, but a lot of them start caring for their aging parents at this point, and there's, you know, I don't know, we need to talk about like another leave, and we need, on a social level, we need to talk about men being responsible to care for aging parents as well. So that's shared duty, like we've been fighting about shared parenting responsibility, so that women aren't always penalized for being child carers, you know?
How many of us take ourselves out of the running because we haven't been on our A game in the last few years, or, you know, the corporate environment just isn't for me anymore. And is it because it's just too hard to deal with what's going on with your body and what's going on in, you know, but we don't even know that
That's literally exactly where I am, where I had just in the last few months had moved up to the C-suite level, and I was just completely wiped out. The added stress, the added responsibilities. I did a lot of emotional labor at work. That was part of my job. It's kind of crisis management and people management. And I was just sitting there thinking, I was like, I can work here another 5 years, and it's going to age me another 10 years. And at that point, I'm not sure that I'm actually going to be able to recover my health to be strong and fit enough to sort of move into my later years. And it was like, I just felt this balance just go like this. And I would come home every night and just be, face down on the couch with nothing left for my family, and, just nothing left. And so I decided to leave the job, and it was a hard decision because there was a lot that I truly loved about it. And I was excited to have the opportunity to lead a bigger team and have just have an impact at that level. But the toll that it was taking personally, it just got so out of balance. And since I've left, it's just been a couple of months, but I've been able to change everything. I mean, I've been able to change my diet. I've been able to decrease. I had to take pain meds for pain management. I've been able to decrease all of my pain meds. I just had my physical, all of my numbers are going in the right direction, but there's no way that I could do that, for me personally, that I could do that and work the job and put everything, because I just put everything into the job. And
that's why I left teaching as well. I quit being a university professor, and I didn't know, I was at the very beginning of perimenopause when I looked, but that's only in retrospect. You know? I just thought I was tired and I was exhausted, and I wasn't getting along with all of my colleagues, and students were starting to just suck too much out of me, and I told myself I was taking a break, but I have never gone back, because as soon as I started taking a break, then perimenopause hit full blown, and I didn't even have the confidence to try to go back in front of the classroom and try to fight in a new city, to be in the morass of academia, fighting for your place, and starting a whole new set of relationships and climbing a whole new ladder. And I miss teaching. I was good at it.
It was really getting to the point where it's like the minute I would leave the office, because you're just trying to keep yourself going, it was just an immediate crash. And I would just sleep. All I would do on the weekends, it would be a beautiful day like this, I just want to sleep. And it was getting to the point of I think when I was talking about doing this, I mean, I was literally in tears, because it was feeling like it was just taking over my life, this need to just rest all the time. And thankfully, I just started doing acupuncture with and I always had this issue, like, I don't think acupuncture actually does anything. But I found someone that was really good and I've gotten a lot of more energy back and haven't had to take a nap in like, I don't know, like 3 weeks or whatever since I've done that. But it was, finding, like you said, an alternative way of dealing with it rather than just trying to truck through. And
because fatigue makes you feel like your life is passing you
yes, that's what it felt like knowing, oh, what'd you do this weekend? I just relaxed. What'd you do? Oh, I went jogging, I went hiking, we went kayaking, and it's like I planned to do that when I woke up.
When I woke up
this
and saw the beautiful day,
and
but
then I immediately did not decide to do it.
yeah.
Every memoir that you read about dysfunctional childhoods, I think the mom is always just laying in bed in the other room in bed while the kids are being traumatized or running around with scissors or whatever. And I've really tried to like not be the mom that's just always in bed, but that's what I was finding too, is that every conversation I was having with my son was me like in bed with the covers up to here with him talking about his day and everything, and I'm like, well, he's gonna write a memoir, like it's it has been foretold now because I won't get out of the freaking bed. And,
insomnia is one very big clue of perimenopause, and I don't know if you were all good sleepers before this, but I was
fine.
Oh, I was
I'm
easy.
team Ambien all the way, and I own it. I freaking love Ambien. I can't recommend it enough.
Yeah, I never had to rely on sleeping pills of any sort. So the insomnia really took a toll on me, and to the point where I started feeling like maybe I just need a different career. I'm really, that crossed my mind. And then, on college visits with my daughter, I was like, I'm going to be a sorority house mom.
That is right. That is
You can do that from bed.
I want to do. Like, how soon? Like, you can live there.
Can you do it from bed? Right. That's what I want to know. What can I do from bed?
Girls.
For the most, right, exactly. But that is like really where my headspace was. But I knew that wouldn't pay the bills.
Yeah.
So
Well, you were talking about changing to just wear black at work.
Yeah.
And I did that where a couple of years ago I thought, I'm only going to shop for clothes that feel like pajamas, but that I can wear out into the world. And so like I just went
Now's
into
the
like,
time to do it with athleisure.
yeah, like I can't bear like to be uncomfortable. Like it's such and again it's like it's just distraction on top of distraction of whether you're trying to like get enough energy to do something, or you're working on top of pain, or you're working on top of cramps. It's just like on the days where I feel good, it's like I'll step back and be like, oh my gosh, this is what it's like to be a regular person.
Just be normal.
And you realize like how much you're just sort of operating on top of and without ever being able to like fully address it.
Yeah.
So if you can get elastic pants, like that's just
my
one
God.
less thing to have to suffer.
Well, and I think, that sort
Wearing
of all
elastic
goes
pants right
together for me with the self-confidence thing, because all of a sudden your clothes don't fit you, right? They don't, the clothes you've always had, that skirt that was always your go-to no longer feels comfortable. So for a little while you just wear it anyway. And then you are cognizant the entire day of how it doesn't fit you properly, and you're uncomfortable, which is not only physical discomfort, but emotional discomfort, because it doesn't fit you because you're fat. And the reason you're fat is because you didn't go hiking on Saturday because you just slept all day. And like it spirals
And
into
then
this
ate everything
ugly
that was in the...
like monologue that's
I think we
going
can call
on.
it a clusterfuck, right?
Yeah.
We can-
I agree with Easy.
I think that is exactly what it is. And that for me right now. I've done Weight Watchers, I think 2-3 times, and done very well. And the last time kept the weight off for, I don't know, 5-6 years or something. And then I got to a point where I was like, I don't feel like working out. I don't feel like counting any more points. I just don't want to do it anymore. And sure enough, weight just, and now I'm like right back to where I started. And now I know, okay, I'm older, it's going to be harder. I'm not doing this whole points thing. I am just going to be whatever I'm going to be. But yeah, mentally and emotionally, it's just like, oh, this is so
and there's
exhausting.
a whole narrative about that of and and bias too of like, well,
Yeah.
you've just let yourself go, or you've let
Yes.
yourself, you know, those kinds of things of that. If you're really on your game and you're like an A player, then you're very put together
Right.
and you're polished
and you work
you've
out
done
and
all
you go
the
to
things.
the
Yeah.
well
Yeah.
and you know every
Yeah.
I think the weight gain is another big sign because every single perimenopausal woman I know, whether she's stick thin and I can't see it, she's still 5 or 10 pounds heavier than she's ever been in her life, and no matter what she does it won't go away, and she's freaking out about it. And
Well, she's let herself go.
and that's like, you know, that's the script. You're just not working hard
Hey, I
enough.
just don't want to be in the gym beating myself up all the time so that I can be a certain size. Or
She's
whatever.
let herself go.
Yeah. Oh,
So sad.
Well, and I think the adrenal fatigue that
Yes,
comes
I'm
along
too
with this time
tired.
period is not actually conducive to those really long, heavy workouts that we think is going to fix the problem, when you're like, what's happening inside your body is more complicated than that. It really just is not about longer, harder workouts. Because I did that. I was on Weight Watchers working out 5 days a week, counting the points. Still nothing was happening because my body was like, no, lady, we're freaking out. We're exhausted.
got other
And
things that we
everything
need to
you're
do.
doing is the
Yep.
exact wrong
Yeah.
thing that I need right
Yeah.
now.
Yeah.
when you have left your job, did you talk to HR and say, just I need to leave because I'm going through menopause?
No,
Right.
because I still don't feel like I have it at all sorted out. Like it feels.
It's connected.
I mean, I think what I said was that, you know, one of the reasons I left was that I really needed to focus on my health, and
Okay,
that's
Yeah.
all I
So it's
said.
a little bit.
Little
Okay.
bit, but
Well, I think that's a start because, you know, when you're trying to look at why are women leaving, don't think that many of them are going into their HR exit interviews and saying,
Yeah.
the reason I'm leaving is because I don't feel well. I think I'm going through menopause. I don't have my shit together. Like, they don't really say that. What do they say? Well, I want to focus more on my family. You know, I want to take some time off. I think I might want to, you know, explore another career.
Yeah,
And this
that
might
was-
not be. This
yeah.
might not be for me.
I just need a break.
I just need a break. So nobody, you know, thinks that health or menopause is a factor for why
or it's a
people are leaving.
legitimate reason.
Yeah,
that
it's
would be
not
a
a legitimate
legitimate
re- it's
reason.
not
Well,
a-
I think that if you went in and you were transparent, or at least at my company, they would have been thoughtful about it. They would have wanted to know more information. They would have wanted in it kind of a big picture way to figure out how to make it work potentially. But I think that the bias comes in at the micro level, and it's sort of like, in theory we want to have an inclusive workplace, but when it comes down to it and you make a mistake or you don't do as well on something that you want to do, they're not able to actually factor in the bigger picture stuff in the kind of day to day. So that was my sense, is like, and I would always try to be pretty transparent, or I guess having chronic pain, you know, you always trying to figure out like how much you want to share. And I tried to be transparent about the fact that like I do have to take pain meds, and there's a lot of hype in the, you know, in the media about opioid epidemics and all of that kind of stuff. And so you have to be a little bit careful about it. And I would always just kind of treat it with humor. But if I was like, you know, I couldn't see myself going in and saying like, hey, just so you know, for today, I'm going to be like really heavily medicated, so don't expect much from me. Like, you can't do that.
Right.
So it's sort of, I just think that at a big picture level, people would want to be supportive and would want to be inclusive.
It's just
But
figuring out what that means.
But playing it
Right.
out day to day, it would not work in your favor at all.
Yeah.
I would say when all of this started for me about 5 years ago, and I, again, myself didn't even understand what I was going through.
Right,
I did
right.
not feel comfortable sort of explaining some of my challenges. So I kept that very much to myself because I felt like it would, I mean, I had a handicap,
Yeah.
or that I was weak because
Yeah.
how are others managing it so well
Yeah.
on the outside? So, but as you know, the years have gone by, I feel like we're in this really good moment where we're having a lot more discussion about inclusivity, acceptance, limiting, you know, bias. And I thought, wow, here I'm at an agency that's claiming to be very progressive. And so I felt a bit more comfortable saying, if you're really a leadership team in this walk for talk, I have something to share. And I was hoping that it would be met with, with compassion and understanding, and also trust in me that I care to solve this. So I have a lot of male leadership, and I went to my boss, who is the chairman of our company and also our CEO. And both of them were so open, compassionate, understanding, and as it turned out, the chairman of our company happened to know a doctor who heads up the Center for Menopause at Northwestern. Oh, wow. And
There's a Center for Menopause?
Yes.
Center for Menopause, y'all.
Yes. And they need to have these all over the country.
Yeah,
this is the first time where I walked in and I was treated like, a normal person. So that was really exciting. But it was him that opened that door for me. And then when I spoke with our CEO, who is a bit younger, in his 40s, he himself had never heard the term menopause before. And he was like, "What are you telling me?" And he listened to all of it and he was like, "Wow, my mind is so open to all of this." And, so here I am opening up to 2 male leaders, but I do feel like it was just the right time. And a few years ago, would never have been comfortable in doing that. But they've been my biggest supporters, and have definitely been, just champions all the way. So after I became transparent in my workplace and ended up writing an article that was it was Mental Health Awareness Month this past May. And we did an internal campaign to sort of address it and have like an open discussion, about people's mental health challenges and how they're addressing them. Mine was in the context of mental health. And when I shared that story internally, it was well accepted and I was encouraged to share it externally. But I was very shaky about doing that because I just didn't know if like the larger community, larger world was really open to this kind of a story. But I did go forward. I published it on LinkedIn of all places. And my network is, if you think about it, I work in the PR industry, so it's mostly PR, marketing, media, and in the markets of LA, New York, Chicago. So these are not, the US is not very open about menopause. So, but it was very well received. However, most of my readership was out in the UK, where they are very progressive and care very much about this topic. And there's women that are championing the story. And I'm like, where are the Americans? Not engaging in on this.
We have to pull ourselves up by our bootstraps. So we don't. Yeah, we can't.
Right.
Yeah.
Seriously, where are the Americans? They're sort of scared. However, what I did get was tons of one-on-one communications from people. So they didn't want to be public and engaging with me, but they certainly were private. Emails, LinkedIn messages, and more questions than answers for them. We can't talk in an echo chamber anymore. And if we're going to talk about women's leadership, I think that we cannot just brush aside our biology. If there are companies that are truly talking about being more diverse and inclusive and supporting gender equality, they have got to get behind the education around this, because you'll never get equality at leadership if you're only looking at 30-year-olds.
It's kind of, I guess, women's not issues,
reality.
but reality.
It's our biological reality.
This is us. This is how we come. So
all the awesomeness also includes this.
Right.
And some of this is less than awesome.
Yes.
So not only did so many of us have to go to 3 or 4 or 5 doctors and get blind allied, which costs so much money, by the way.
And time.
Acupuncture and time that you've got to figure out how to take off from work. But we had a woman write in a story on the HelloPause Facebook page where she actually went and did the thing, started looking for a doctor to get help with her symptoms, and was diagnosed with menopause, I guess, the disease, And then when she had to change insurance companies, they asked her if she was cured of it, and when she had to say no, they denied her healthcare coverage. No freaking joke. So not only are you going to 1 million doctors to even freaking find out what you've got, now chances are like there's a possibility that insurance companies won't even help you do that. So just get ready to open your pocketbooks and bleed money on,
With all the
7 or
other stuff
8
you're
doctors. Because exactly.
Wow.
Health insurance is tied to being able to work, and so it's that kind
yes.
of, it's that kick in the ass of, well, I can stop working or take a less demanding job, or do contract work, so that I can take care of myself. But then that's going to trigger a loss of health insurance, and so
Right,
you
and
have to
then-
perform to be able to take care of yourself. And
Yeah, it is a vicious cycle. And, some women who are in a privileged position like me, I was able to quit the job that had the health insurance at the university and choose, like, once I started feeling better, now I'm back to doing my less lucrative career, but I'm really banking on my spouse's income. Like, that's what's paying for our retirement in a way that my old career was going to. And not everyone even has that option. So, you're stuck on the treadmill.
And when you look at the statistics of divorce, it's at 50%, and
Yeah.
I'm part of that statistic. So,
Okay.
yeah, I only have myself to depend on, and so this career means everything to me.
And that's
Well,
been
no,
big for you, right?
yeah.
Because you're thinking of a career change, but
Yeah, definitely a career change that I'm excited about, and it's something I'm passionate about, but it's probably less lucrative, and not being married, not have been married, and no kids. So there's not going to be anybody that's going to come up and take care of me. So yeah, it's a big decision to make, and to think about, okay, well, do I just keep doing this forever? And
The trade-offs are big, and I think
Yeah.
that points to how shitty you feel, and how
Yes,
right.
what a big impact the symptoms have. That, I mean, I just did that, as decided to walk away from a job that I really did love in a lot of ways,
Right.
and I had a good salary, I had health insurance, and I felt so crappy that I was just like, it feels worth it right now to make this change. But I'm not even at the point yet of dealing with, like, okay, now, so what am I going to do next?
Yeah,
And I'm
Yeah.
living off right now. I'm living off of my savings, and I'm on Cobra, so the health insurance is extended. But
right, that's the short term.
yeah.
Thankfully, I do have, like the HSA and everything to pay for, like, the extra, acupuncture or therapy or whatever. But that stuff starts running out too.
Yeah, and I didn't have insurance for that. I just, wrote checks for all those extra
I mean,
doctors.
that it starts adding up like crazy.
And I've cared to educate women in the workplace about the potential list of symptoms that can have an impact on work performance and also your confidence. It is the anxiety. It's also insomnia. It's hot flashes and how it affects your presence. And it is about the brain fog, irritability, and the way that you interact with people. That's a big one as well, and hard to like depict and define. And irregular periods. All of this has an impact on the way you show up
Hair
to work.
loss.
Yes, these are extensions. They are.
So to me, that part of I think the power of destigmatizing it is that, think about how much time and energy and focus it takes to do all the things you have to do to just ramp yourself up to be able to present the way that you're supposed to present at work. And if you could even, peel off 5 of those things, of feeling like your hair has to be a certain way, or your clothes have to be a certain way, or you have, like, all of those kinds of things about how you're supposed to present, like, how much more of your capacity you would be able to give at work, or you'd be able to give to your life, if you didn't have to kind of front and seem like you're okay.
Right.
And, like, to me, that's part of the destigmatizing.
Right. So, and quantify the amount of time we invest in this stuff.
Yeah.
It's about the daily preparation. What you said, that's one day, hour and a half for some of us.
Right.
And then, I would spend an hour and a half chasing my memory all day. So, talk about that unproductive time. That's time that men don't have to invest.
Right. Well, and that irritability thing, that's big.
Yes.
I damaged a couple of relationships. That rage and irritability, it's like being a teenager all over again.
Yes.
And like it comes in the moment, it feels so justified. And mine was combined with anxiety. So I really literally felt like these people were working against me. And
I mean, they shouldn't be so irritating. If they don't want you to be irritable, right?
Exactly.
Well, and I mean, if you think about it though, if there's multiple women in the workplace coming to work with no sleep, spending an hour and a half getting ready, like not feeling like no matter how long they got ready, they came with their best self, and then coming in and not remembering anything, and then having to deal with
Each
another
other
woman
and other people
that's on perimenopause, and you're all irritable. I mean, no wonder.
Like there's that awful stereotype about
Right.
women being horrible to each other.
Right, and that's it. And you know, this idea of allies, they say men have really nailed that. They are allies to each other, and
Yeah.
we really haven't figured out that formula. And that is an opportunity. And a lot of women's leadership organizations, they are championing it, but how much it's being, you know, accepted, embraced, put into practice, that's a whole other thing. And we do have to recognize being very transparent, honest, the way that you are right now about owning your irritability and being compassionate about that, empathetic on behalf of others. That's a big step forward. And I think that we need to do more of that. I'll say men are just as irritable, if not more, but it's
Right.
more accepted and embraced. For women, it's like we're not really given that permission to be a little irritable sometimes. And we have to give ourselves permission to do that.
To be imperfect. I mean, it's part, again, it's
Absolutely.
the fronting
Yeah.
again. And
Well, when Lisa came up with this concept of just having an unscripted conversation and just speaking from your own experience,
Yeah.
I think it felt so freeing to be able to do something like that. And then watching a few episodes, you realize the rich conversation that exists that has not been really addressed before. But I also have appreciated hearing everyone's curiosity about it and, you know, how do we solve for it? I think we all are sharing the same passion for how do we solve for this and how do we bring more awareness to more people.
Right.
And it is that power of conversation. It is being unscripted. I can't read anything more about this in an echo chamber. I need to get out and be speaking with others directly about it. And I think that's the power of doing, you know, a project like this. And I hope it has the impact that it's intended, because it really will make a difference.